Hi there. Welcome to Oakland Side 510. I'm Tasneem Raja, editor-in-chief of the Oakland Side, Oakland's independent nonprofit newsroom. This week's main story is all about Oakland schools. Teachers nearly went on strike, layoffs are looming, and the district's financial crisis is reaching a breaking point. Education reporter Ashley McBride is here to break it all down for you. Then later in this episode, I'm going to tell you about a mass shooting at a downtown Oakland nightclub that left 2 people dead, Oakland's new speed cameras issuing a stunning number of warnings in their first month, thousands of immigrant truck drivers just lost their licenses overnight, and a new state bill that's trying to crack down on illegal dumping. Plus, Bruce Lee's Oakland and your guide to all the Oakland sports teams that you can root for this year. And by the way, I want to tell you about a really great live event that the Oakland Side is hosting coming up Thursday, March 19th, a great conversation with Oakland authors at the New Parkway. Our arts reporter, Azucena Racia, will be in conversation with New York Times best-selling author Jasmine Guillory, debut novelist Carolina Ixta, and Nomadic Bookshop founder J.K. Fowler. It's all part of our long-running Culture Makers program. Shout out to the New Parkway for being home to this series since 2021. More info on that event, including time, address, ticket prices, in the show notes. All right, let's get into our main story today, Oakland schools. The last several weeks have been really momentous for Oakland Unified, and our education reporter, Ashley McBride, has been right in the middle of it all. Ashley, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start with the big news from last week. Teachers nearly went on strike and then didn't. So what happened?
Right. So the Oakland Education Association and the district had been in contract negotiations for almost a year. Their previous contract expired last July. Last month, union members voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike. And then the next week, the school board approved layoffs of more than 400 positions. It felt like everything was coming to a head at once.
It was a very tense few days.
It really was. But on early Friday morning, around 3 a.m., the union and the district reached a tentative agreement and averted the strike.
Yeah. So what did the teachers win?
Teachers won an 11% raise over 2 years for most educators and 13% for the most senior teachers. The union's initial ask was 14% for everyone. It's a pretty big jump from the district's first offer, which was 0%.
Which was 0%?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Special education teachers, early childhood educators, nurses, and social workers will get additional salary increases on top of that. And the agreement also includes smaller caseloads for school counselors and improved workloads for school nurses.
Okay, I mean, clearly meaningful. Not free. The district is already staring down a $100 million deficit. So how is it going to pay for these raises?
That's the open question. A district representative said each 1% raise cost the district around $5 million, which puts this package somewhere in the neighborhood of $65 million over the next few years.
Wow.
School board president Jennifer Brohard acknowledged that she couldn't give an exact figure for how much it'll cost, and district officials have not said how they'll afford these raises on top of the cuts they're already having to make to balance the budget. The agreement still has to be approved by the school board and union members and reviewed by the Alameda County superintendent to make sure the district can actually afford it.
Okay, got it. So now I want to back up for a second and talk about layoffs, because that big vote happened the day before this tentative deal that we've been talking about. So what exactly has the board approved regarding layoffs?
Right. So the board approved eliminating 421 positions and reducing hours of another 144 positions. These take effect June 30th unless the district or PTAs can find money to restore them. These cuts span the central office and school sites. On the school side, they include community school managers, attendance specialists, case managers, literacy coaches, counselors, social workers, noon supervisors, restorative justice facilitators, and family engagement specialists.
Wow.
Also, assistant principals and network superintendents, people who provide crucial support to school principals, are also being cut.
Okay, some of these positions people may not be as familiar with. So community school manager, attendance specialist, literacy coach. Can you just tell us a little bit about what they do?
These are roles that help keep kids in school by addressing other needs kids and families might have outside of the classroom. They run affinity groups for students and families, connect families with food assistance, medical care, legal aid, that kind of thing.
Got it.
Attendance specialists are the people who call home when a student doesn't show up and help figure out why. These positions are really critical because kids have to be in school to learn, and attendance is a major part of school funding.
Mm-hmm.
Literacy coaches support teachers in reading instruction. All of these roles have become essential to schools.
Okay, and so now what you're saying is that many of those roles are being cut.
Exactly. And the timing feels especially painful because the district is also counting on improving attendance to bring in more state revenue, around $10 million, as part of its plan to close the deficit. Many people have pointed out that this is a contradiction, cutting the people whose job it is to get kids to school while banking on attendance going up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you did have some good news to report recently about support staffers at OUSD, like some of the folks we've been talking about. Can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, there is some good news in the middle of all of this. SEIU Local 1021, which represents about 1,000 district employees, literacy tutors, library technicians, case managers, attendance specialists, culture and climate keepers, reached a tentative agreement in December after 10 months of bargaining. And yes, these are some of the same roles being eliminated that we just talked about. The new contract, settled a few months ago, gives all members a 16% raise over 2 years and crucially sets a $25 an hour minimum wage.
Okay, got it. So the good news is some people in these positions are, going to see higher wages. The bad news is there's going to be less of them. Ashley, can you give us a sense of just how much of a, jump this is?
Right. Some of these workers were earning very little. Literacy tutors, for example, were starting at the state minimum wage, $17.34 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Instructional support specialists, people who work with students with disabilities, start around $27,000 a year.
Wow.
In Alameda County, a single adult with no children needs to earn close to $30 an hour just to afford the basics.
Yeah.
So for some of these workers, $25 an hour is genuinely the difference between making a living and not. And these are the roles that help schools function.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand kind of where we are in these processes. So has that contract with the raises that you're talking about, has that been approved? Like, is that final now?
So yes, at the same meeting where the board voted to make hundreds of layoffs, it approved the new SEIU contract, but it will still have to come with cuts. The county superintendent, Elise Castro, who reviews all labor agreements for school districts, noted that OUSD is continuing a pattern of adding new expenses before making the cuts and trade-offs to afford them. And she said this will not lead to fiscal solvency.
Okay, Ashley, help us put the district's problems in context. Is Oakland Unified the only school district that's facing a situation like this right now?
Oakland Unified is not alone in this. We're seeing this in districts up and down the state, including our neighbors. San Francisco and West Contra Costa had teacher strikes this year. Berkeley and Oakland were able to avoid a strike, but all these districts are facing massive budget cuts and layoffs, and it's leading some folks to turn to the state and say, we need more systemic change. If all these districts are running out of money, the argument is maybe that means the state needs to revamp how it funds public schools.
Got it. Okay. I want to zero in on one of the potential cuts on the table here. Ashley, you and your colleague, Rosalind Romero, our public safety reporter, have been reporting in depth on the school-based violence prevention program that is at risk of losing funding right now.
Right. This is something I'm really worried about. The city of Oakland has been funding violence interruption and prevention teams at several OUSD high schools for nearly 4 years. These teams include a violence interrupter, a life coach, and a gender-based violence specialist. They're placed at schools like Castlemont, Fremont, McClymonds, Skyline, and Oakland Tech. The city provided more than $8 million over 4 years for this work, but it was always framed as a pilot that the district would eventually take over. And that funding cliff has arrived at exactly the wrong moment, just as the district is trying to cut $100 million.
Right. So do we know if this program is working?
The results are promising. An Urban Institute evaluation found that schools with these teams saw a more than 10% drop in chronic absenteeism and a decrease in suspensions for violence, while suspensions for violence actually increased at schools without these teams. Among students receiving life coaching, 47% met all of their goals.
So we're seeing real results, but there is no clear money to keep it going.
Essentially, the city hasn't committed to extending funding, and the district hasn't committed to picking it up.
Mm-hmm.
The executive director of Youth Alive, one of the nonprofits staffing these teams, told me, if we don't fund this, we lose an opportunity to keep young people safe at a moment when something is actually working in Oakland. And it's especially unfortunate because this is the same school year that a student was shot on campus at Skyline High School.
Yeah, my daughter is going to be starting at OUSD in the fall. And I know from all my WhatsApp groups and all my conversations that people across Oakland school communities are feeling desperate right now in the face of these cuts. And a lot of people are asking, like, what can we do?
They are. Some PTAs are scrambling to fundraise to keep these positions. One school, Joaquin Miller Elementary, is planning to raise $290,000 next year to fund the positions the district cut.
Wow.
The PTA president was candid with me that they can only do it for 1 year, but not indefinitely. Mm-hmm. And at schools where most families are low income, that kind of fundraising simply isn't possible.
No. A
lot of OUSD schools don't even have PTAs to speak of. A parent at Glenview Elementary mentioned that the school's PTA would need to raise an additional $305,000 to fund reading intervention, mental health counselors, enrichment, and music. She put it plainly, cuts widen inequities. They create a two-tiered system between schools that can privately subsidize programs and schools that can't.
Okay, I want to talk about how we got here. So, look, we all know the district has been in financial crisis for a while. We have talked about that in depth on the podcast before. But nonetheless, it feels like things have really escalated this month. Is that fair to say, Ashley?
I think so. The board is trying to close a projected $102 million deficit for the next school year. That means cutting $102 million from the unrestricted general fund. About half of those cuts are already in progress, mainly through shrinking the central office, which will lose roughly 2/3 of its workforce. The other $50 million still needs to be identified. Interim Superintendent Denise Sadler has been candid about how dire things are. She noted that the district now serves about 34,000 students, but still has the same number of school buildings as when there were 54,000. The board majority directed her not to close or consolidate schools as part of this budget plan, but some parents and community members have been pushing for the board to start those conversations again.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like we're at a point where tensions have just come to a head at this point in a way that, like, it's all stacked on top of itself.
Right. And district leaders have known for a while that this moment was coming. They've known that COVID funding was going to run out. Every year, the budget team puts together multi-year projections, so the board knows 2 and 3 years out what they'll be dealing with if they don't make any changes. And it's not just this current board, but previous boards who have continued to kick the can down the road, which County Superintendent Castro has pointed out over and over again. What's really needed is not just one-time cuts, because those don't solve a structural deficit. They're really going to have to strategically overhaul how OUSD spends its money.
I mean, Ashley, this is obviously a lot happening all at once. Like, what's the connective tissue here? How do you see it all coming together?
It's all part of the same story, really. The district is in a genuine financial emergency, and the decisions being made right now will shape Oakland schools for years. The question that isn't being answered is, what are the things that we think every school needs to provide, and how do we fund that? Principals and parents are fighting hard to protect the people closest to kids. Meanwhile, the district is simultaneously trying to raise teacher pay, which everyone agrees is important, while cutting staff who support teachers and students in other ways. There are no easy answers here.
Ashley, thank you for staying on top of all of this. It really matters.
Thanks, Tasneem.
You can find all of Ashley's reporting on Oakland schools at oaklandside.org. We will link to everything here in the show notes. Let's get into some more recent reporting from our newsroom. There's more in the full stories online, which we will link to in the show notes. You can always find it at oaklandside.org. Please sign up for our daily newsletter if you want to get our reporting in your inbox. I have to start with some tragic news. A mass shooting inside Easy's Lounge, a downtown Oakland nightclub, early Saturday morning, left 2 people dead and 5 injured. The victims were Leticia Bobo, 33, an English language arts teacher at a charter school in San Pablo, and Marquise Martin, 25, a father of a 1-year-old daughter. Their deaths marked the 13th and 14th homicides in Oakland this year. Police detained multiple people and recovered several firearms. OPD's Homicide Division is investigating. We will link to Rosalind Romero's full story in the show notes. Jose Formoso has an update on Oakland's new speed cameras, which went live in January. In the first month alone, the city sent out 70,000 warnings to drivers caught going at least 11 miles per hour over the speed limit. That is more than double the number San Francisco issued in its own first month, despite San Francisco having more cameras. Real fines, starting at $50 and going up to $500, begin this month. No more warnings. Jose's story has details on where the cameras are, what early glitches looked like, and what Oakland is required to do with the revenue. Link in the show notes. Also from Jose, thousands of immigrant truck drivers across California, many of them in the Bay Area, had their licenses canceled over the weekend. The California DMV canceled the commercial and regular licenses of roughly 13,000 drivers whose expiration dates extended beyond their immigration documents following a new federal rule. One Bay Area driver who worked for a local waste collection organization for years told us he now can't work and is considering working in the restaurant industry, which could mean earning at least 50% less. A class action suit is underway, and a judge has ordered the DMV to allow drivers to reapply, but when new commercial licenses will be issued remains unclear. Our City Hall reporter, Eli Wolf, has been tracking Oakland's illegal dumping problem for a while now, and now there's a new proposal to tackle it. State Senator Jesse Arreguín has introduced a bill that would require the DMV to refuse to renew vehicle registrations for people who have outstanding illegal dumping fines. This is the same way the DMV already handles unpaid parking tickets. This comes after the Oakland side reported that in 2025, Oakland cited people for dumping but collected money from only 25 of the 270 cases. Eli's story has the details on the bill and the local officials who are backing it. Rosalind Romero and Darwin Bongram, our news editor, have a striking story about something really notable that happened in an Alameda County courtroom last week. So the defendant in that case, an Oakland woman named Ebony Rout, faced misdemeanor charges of battery against a police officer and resisting arrest. Now, during jury selection, her attorney, Janique Malik, scanned the room and realized there were no Black people left in the pool. Chief Public Defender Brendan Woods appeared in court and refused to proceed with the trial. Quote, "This panel is not a jury of our client's peers," he said. This story gets into a long-standing pattern of underrepresentation of Black jurors in Alameda County. It's worth reading in full. Link is in the show notes. Okay, next, here is a story that is a little different. Our deputy editor, Esther Kaplan, went walking through Oakland Chinatown and beyond with Jeff Chang, the East Bay cultural critic and hip-hop historian who has just published a new biography of Bruce Lee called Water, Mirror, Echo, Bruce Lee and the Making of Asian America. Jeff took Esther around to places where Bruce Lee actually lived and trained during his time in Oakland in 1964, including a garage in Maxwell Park where he worked out and the Broadway storefront where he opened his Kung Fu school. It's a vivid tour of a city that shaped one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century. Okay, closing us out, if you need a refresher on all of the Oakland sports teams that you can show up for this year, we have got you covered. Ann Marks has a comprehensive sports guide covering everything from the Oakland Roots to the Golden State Storm to the Oakland Ballers, who, if you missed it, won the Pioneer League championship last season. There's also a women's soccer team, an ultimate frisbee team, a roller derby squad, and a brand new ice hockey team. Also, the San Francisco Unicorns cricket team plays their home matches right here at the Oakland Coliseum. And the Roots home opener is this Saturday, March 14th at the Coliseum. That is this week's episode of Oaklandside 510. You can find all the stories we talked about today at oaklandside.org. Do sign up for our daily newsletter. It's the best way to keep up with our reporting. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one of those reviews. The more people listening, the more we keep this show going. This episode was produced by Mark Nieto and hosted by me, Oaklandside Editor-in-Chief Tasneem Raja. On behalf of our entire newsroom, thank you for showing up for Oakland. We will see you next week.